Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. We are gonna have to spend Thanksgiving weekend going over the intro for Kubrin.
Uh-huh.
So, good morning, good morning, at 9 News viewers. This is Yaro Kubrin, and my article today here on Tuesday is about more litigious people. Pot company sues California City after spending $10 million trying to open pot shop. A California cannabis dispensary is suing its local government for failing to give it a permit to open, which it says is costing it $110,000 a month as it waits for the final approval. High Seas, a dispensary in Costa Mesa, California, said in a press release last week that it has spent over $10 million on building out a pot store in the Orange County city. Per the release, the dispensary is spending $110,000 a month on fees, salaries, and maintaining the property while still waiting for its final business license from the city. Not only has the license not been granted yet, but, quote, the city has not provided High Seas any legitimate reason in writing as to why they are withholding the final permit issuance, unquote, it said in a release. High Seas has now turned to the court system, filing a lawsuit in Orange County Superior Court last week that asks a judge to force the city of Costa Mesa to issue the company's final cannabis business permit. Our right to operate has been infringed upon by the city's unwarranted lack of action, says the High Seas majority owner Rachel Zinn in a November 7th press release. These delays are costing us exorbitant monthly fees as we work to retain our highly trained employees and pay mortgage rates with no income, not to mention the lost tax revenue the city isn't collecting. High Seas said the city gave the dispensary preliminary approval 2 years ago, and the company has since spent $4.5 million improving its Costa Mesa property and the additionally several million dollars applying for city permits, according to the lawsuit. The dispensary has since earned a state license, passed all local building and fire inspections, and is now waiting for a final cannabis business license from the city. Yet Costa Mesa has completely stopped communicating with High Seas, despite multiple attempts by the company to contact the city government by email, by phone, in person, and in written legal letters, according to the lawsuit. High Seas hasn't heard back from the city since it received its final building department inspection on September 26th, according to the filing. All inquiries have been ignored and no response as to the reason for not issuing the cannabis business license given, High Seas said in the lawsuit. Local governments across California have been accused of mismanaging cannabis permitting and making it nearly impossible for legal pot companies to get a permit. A recent study conducted by the University of California, Berkeley, found that on average it took 2 years for a cannabis farm to get a local license. Jonathan Kovetko, executive director of the United Cannabis Business Association, said he's seen retail pot shop owners run out of money waiting for local governments to grant their licenses. He explained that local government in California often requires business owners to rent a property before they can apply for a permit, even though it can take years for the city to actually approve the license. The gap can leave business owners paying rent for years before they can make a single sale. It makes it nearly impossible to have a viable business when they raise their money, and most of those funds go to just keeping the project alive before they even open, Queveco said to SF Gate. The city of Costa Mesa did not respond to SF Gate's request for comment. It's not clear whether it's responded to Zinn's petition yet. So let me kick this off for a second. I think we can acknowledge that across the country, one of the biggest issues in rolling out regulated cannabis or going from medical to adult use is a lack of brick and mortar retail locations, a lack of access, and what that does to a regulated supply chain that typically is more permit friendly on the cultivation side. Lack of retail is one of the biggest problems in this regulated paradigm, in my opinion. Secondarily, the 2 years that it's taken on average is terrible. The cost to businesses before they've gotten open and the burn rate on having to secure real estate is a major issue. We can look at people like Kika Keith. It took over 1,000 days before she got to open her retail location in Los Angeles. And so going from 1,000 days down to 2 years is not that's not progress. That's barely progress. And it's really, really expensive. So I think that we need to think about how we support the regulated industry by fast tracking the permit process and by aligning those timelines with what other on cannabis businesses might otherwise expect to get a restaurant or delicatessen opened. I'm curious to hear what my other guests think about this and whether they think this is just another whiner or whether maybe this lawsuit could cause cities to rethink the pace at which they actually do business. This is Yaro Kubrin, High at Night News, Tuesday morning.
Well, I don't think it's going to change Costa Mesa's mind on how they do business because they got money. If you're in a broker city, then yes, it definitely will change the mind of the city manager, in my opinion. But if you have cities that are much more affluent, have much more money on their balance sheets, it's not going to change anything.
Well, rich cities or not, either way, they're spending taxpayer money to participate even against their choice in a civil litigation because this business is burning through $110,000 a month. So it's cheaper for them to litigate than it is to just sit there twiddling their thumbs and being patient. It seems to me that at a very minimum, cities do have a requirement to get back to permit pending licensees within X number of days, whether that's 5 business days, 2 weeks, a month. It sounds like this city has just ghosted them. And while I'm not a big proponent of litigation or the courts as a way to get one's way, if the city ghosts you and you've got a burn rate of $110 a month, what else are they supposed to do?
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. There's not a lot of other options there other than to take the litigious route. I agree with you on that, Yaro.
What's the advantage of the city from denying, forward progress? What do they gain? That's what doesn't make sense to me, right?
They get notoriety on High at 9 News.
They gain clout of an aging demographic who is not going to be in favor of these laws 10, 15 years from now. Right. This is an easy issue where the city wins, where they can get more tax revenue. They can fund their pet projects, whatever they want to do. But you know what? If a small, loud constituency, a portion of their constituency is against this shit, like this is just old ass politicians that need to step aside. This bureaucracy at its finest right here.
Yeah, another point on this, Yaro, is that a lot of times too, the cities will feel as though that to Rico's point, are voicing in the way of a portion of their constituent base, so they can justify that as far as a taxpayer expense. But some of them also too have still a very prohibitionist attitude, and they're not happy that they're having to do it. And so to them, as much as they can do to slow down the process or to make it unfinancially feasible for certain individuals to be able to open, they are all for that because that still works for them as far as not opening as many stores as would have opened.
This reminds me a lot of on a federal level. Everybody around Joe Biden is pro-cannabis. Everybody around him is saying that, if you don't move forward on this, Donald Trump is going to come in. He's going to steal this issue right from under your nose.
He already has.
He's just stuck in the 80s and stuck in the 90s because that's his happy place. Mm-hmm. I feel like this is what's going on at a lot of these small prohibitionist towns, and Costa Mesa is just another one of them.
Well, there's a lot of ice cream in the 80s and 90s, Rico.
I mean,
a lot of ice cream.
I think I don't know that Joe Biden is really pro-cannabis, even if he's surrounded with people who are a little bit more.
He is not pro-cannabis.
The only drug they verified found in his White House was cocaine, not cannabis. So, I'm just not totally sure that he has seen the light in respect to what the next generation of humanity will look like and the policies that will support that. The one thing I would say, when Mr. Dankin asked the question, what does the city get out of this sort of obstructionistic and sort of delay tactic? It's not the first municipality that we've seen stand up a regulatory framework, and then within that regulatory framework, drag their feet at every possible point. It's so that they can say that they've done it without having done it. And then it's bleeding these businesses dry before these businesses are off the starting block. But really, it's so they can say, look, we have a program. It's not our fault the industry can't get its shit together and be successful. We've provided the framework, and so it's not on us. And so I think, to your question, there are unfortunately, this is not the only municipality where they've stood up something, but then the way in which they've executed their own regulatory framework is where these businesses go to die death by a thousand cuts, and where that time just really, really sucks all of the potential profitability and enthusiasm out of those participants who've managed to just sit in the box and wait and wait and wait and wait and wait in the hopes that they finally get an opportunity to sell legal weed.
Yep. And then after
Yeah.
they wait, and they lose money and they see everybody around them getting money, they're gonna be like, oh, we have to get up on this at that point. Like, vote these
It
people
just
out, man. Get them out.
baffles me how these cities and these agencies don't assist the cannabis capitalist, right? They don't assist us in any
Right.
way and make everything difficult, right, along the way. It just doesn't make any sense. And it doesn't
This
matter who's in office, it's always the same, right? Let's make it very difficult for these guys. I had an audit uh, last year, and it went on from March to March, an entire year, and it cost me $70,000 because we have to pay our CCB to come out and do the audit at $111 per hour.
You
That's
guys
what I
got all
had to
those
do.
unions out there.
Oh, it has nothing to do with a union. It was written in the legislation, and
Everything has
it
to do
wasn't
with
enforced. And then they started enforcing it, but it's been changed. But still cost me 70 grand, right, to pay to get audited because it took them a year.
Mhm.
Year.
I mean, I look at that the way I look at a colonoscopy, okay? I had to go through the colonoscopy and I still had to pay my health insurance for the opportunity to do it. But at the end of it, I got a clean bill of health. And so I do think that being post audit and being able to say that you've been strenuously regulated and overviewed and inspected, there's a value to that. I'm not as upset at the notion that they're going to pass through the expenses of regulating the industry as I am at the fact that time is money, and that the time that it takes,
100%. Yeah.
or like, get me open, regulate the heck out of me, audit me, inspect me, colonoscopy me. I don't care, but at least allow me to be a business that's in operations. And when we're talking about 2 years, and we're talking about 2 years after they got the license issued,
Oh,
right?
it's
So that
completely
preliminary,
fucked up.
there was time before that we're not even putting on the clock. 2 years from that, and they still don't have a certificate of occupancy. And they waited until they got that before they deployed the other $4.5 million or whatever it is that they've put into some of those improvements to the real estate. They waited till they got their initial entitlements to not get a certificate of occupancy. And we're post COVID. The city can't say, oh, we have a limited skeleton staff. It's just sad. And it's really, unfortunately, I wanted to, counterbalance your feel good article with something that, again, went back to the ridiculous overregulation and onerous processes. But it's just sad because I think the regulated cannabis industry, if it can get dispensaries open quickly in these exciting markets like California or New York, then we're going to do well. And if we can't, then we're not going to do well. It might actually be that simple.
Todd, real quickly here. Your state out in Nevada, they had a big controversy with that, with them slow walking licenses and slow walking all those audits. Whatever came of those grievances that were filed by local business owners out in Nevada?
Yeah, I don't think it's been settled yet. There's still a big grievance, right? They haven't
Ongoing.
awarded the licenses yet. They talked about putting it on the back burner because they wanted to deal with these lounges now, and they just awarded all these lounge licenses, which should start opening within the next several months.
Yeah, they said. I think I've read this morning. They said that they're hoping to have the first lounges open by the end of the year.
Right.
Sounds a lot like New York to me. Just saying.
Exactly. They took a page out of
Well,
New
there's
York's
been a lot of
playbook.
guys that have been prepping for it in anticipation of winning the license, right? So,
Like Larry.
yeah.
Big shout out to my man Larry.
Yeah. Shout
Good
out
old
to
Larry,
Larry over there
Yeah.
at Planet 13. Oh, man.
Yeah.